Bum-ba-da-dum. Howdy, y'all. Banjo Ben here. Today we're going to learn a fun, syncopated, I would call it advanced, mandolin solo for the old hymn, When the Roll is Called Up Yonder. Check it out. It comes up right after the banjo solo. Now, if you're wanting to learn that banjo solo or the guitar solo, those lessons have already been released for my Gold Pick members over at banjobenclark.com. And by the way, if you're not a Gold Pick member, you need to go over to joinbanjoben.com. You can learn all about the Gold Pick membership, the hundreds of lessons that it offers, and much more, including this full lesson for When the Roll is Called Up Yonder. You'll get the tabs, the jam track MP3s, all that good stuff. But let's learn a little bit together right now. We're going to dive into the verse of this great old classic hymn. Let's go. This is an advanced lesson, so I just want to give you a heads up that we're not going to be covering how to play each and every one of the notes. I want to spend more time on how I'm thinking about the melody and some various ways to capture that, because that will apply to other songs that you're playing, especially with melodies like this one, that when you think about this melody, there's not a lot of movement in it. It's a very straight ahead melody. It's not a fast melody. We're not going to pull any tab up yet. I just want you to use your ears and think about what that melody is. When the trumpet of the Lord shall sound, and time shall be no more. Okay, this isn't like a fiddle tune, right? So we're having to play these slow, repetitive melody notes and find interesting ways to communicate those. Okay, and we're going to do it with some sixth chords, and we're going to do it with some licks here and there, and a lot of syncopation with the cross picking. And another thing to think about is that this melody has a lot of repetitive notes in it, right? And then the next phrase, listen. And then the third line is just like the first line. Okay, so whenever we do come up with a way to present those melody notes, we also want to, when you're playing advanced type stuff, you also want to avoid repeating ideas a whole lot, right? So if you have an opportunity to get diverse in how you're presenting this melody, we want to take those opportunities, and that's what I'm going to show you here today. Let's go ahead and throw up the tab. I'm just going to play you this first line so you can see that tab and see how it sounds. We're going to start by sliding in with a little pickup measure. Now, one thing you probably heard was that there's a lot of syncopation. Notice the eighth note rest that we have in this line. That's not there to notate that you should try to mute your instrument during those rests. Those are just there so that it'll help you count it, because it is so doggone syncopated. When you think about measure 5, right? There's a lot of bop, bop, a lot of backbeat stuff happening there that is that can be tough to count. And I encourage you to actually use your ears, use the MP3s, watch the performance video over again, and use the tab as a backup there. Now, the melody is actually happening here on the first string until it switches down toward the end of that line. What I've chosen to do to communicate that melody is finding chords, partial chords that these melodies are from. So we've got this. And those are all just G major diatonic chords. And then I'm going to play those and go back and forth between the melody and the harmony in various interesting ways. That's what we do right off the bat. Measure 3. Okay, that's more interesting to me than going, right? I'm sure you would agree, although there's nothing wrong with the more simpler version that's also playing the melody. But it's also more interesting than what you might do if you were just playing those partial chords and playing the notes together. Again, nothing wrong with that. That's what I would do. Maybe if I was going extremely fast or if I was just figuring it out. But this tempo allows us to get a little bit more syncopated. And I just want to encourage you, because this is how I'm going back and forth between the melody note and the harmony note. But you can go however you want, right? That's the fun part. However you want to do. And then when we get into measure 5, we're having to fill in some blank spots in the melody where the vocal line's not continuing to sing. And so we have some freedom to fill it in with some bouncy stuff. And that's what we've done there. Now, when we go measure 7, we've got a very similar melody line that we're trying to communicate, right? It's not exactly the same, but it's a lot of the same notes. So I don't want to go back and play exactly the same thing. So I'm going to simplify it a little bit. Actually jump up to that partial C chord, even though that's not part of the melody. It's okay. We're just going to jump it there for a little while because we have some time. And then measure 8 there, you see the notes with the squares around them. Those are muted notes. And this is just how I've chosen to play it. But when you take those muted notes out, the melody is doing this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So I'm just keeping my right hand going and muting the notes in between that. And that's a really good effect on mandolin to do that kind of thing, because it's not hard. You're not doing anything difficult with the melody, but it's adding some percussive elements into the solo. And you don't have to do them exactly like me, right? You could do whatever you want to do. And then we're going to play a lick. And that little bluesy lick, I love incorporating that C note in there because that's the dominant 7th of that D, right? And that's going to help point our ear to that G chord that's coming up in measure 11. So this whole line. Now we're left again to play the same melody line that we played at the very start. We just want to change it up a little bit. This is my variation. Okay, pretty simple as compared to the other things that we're doing. But again, syncopation, I think that the syncopation and not, presenting the melody exactly when you're expecting to hear it, holding off notes here and there, pushing notes here and there, that can serve to make a solo sound more difficult than what it actually is, right? So a solo doesn't have to sound difficult just because there's a bunch of notes in it. If you'll notice here in this line, measures 11 through 14, it's not all eighth notes. There's a lot of quarter notes, dotted quarter notes, a lot of rests, right? But it's still full, and it's still got enough, and it's still communicating the melody. And one of the reasons is because we're doing those syncopated type melody presentations. So just keep that in mind as you approach other songs. Maybe think about playing the melody in a syncopated way and bringing some complexity into your solo without it actually getting harder to play. The last line of the solo, for the verse anyway, before we go into the chorus, I do bring in more eighth notes. And I do this on purpose because we're getting ready to transition into a chorus and the energy is building behind the accompaniment, the other instruments that are backing me up. This line sounds like this. Okay, the melody is still there, but I'm not as concerned with playing every single note of the melody because we've already presented the melody very thoroughly, right? So I'm just going into kind of some more bluegrass scalesy licks. A lot of people may ask, why do you do that pull off, measure 17? Well, it does make it a little bit easier to play, though not that much easier. Honestly, it was just, I started playing it like that, so I wrote it like I played it. This is one of the things where, one of the solos where I kind of work it out myself, like what would I actually play, and then I record it and I go back and tab it. And I just pull that off for whatever reason. It's probably just from the archives of my brain, some lick that I'd learned long ago. So you don't have to pull that off. And you don't even have to slide that. You could play both those notes, okay? Let's try playing the entire verse slowly, and you can speed up or slow down this video. Don't forget that I've got the TEF files. Those will play the song for you, and the Gem Track MP3s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now we get into the chorus, which is more bluegrassy stuff. There's some chromatic licks, which are a lot of fun. And if you're watching somewhere else besides the website, I invite you to come on over. Be a Gold Pick member at banjobenclark.com. Just go to joinbanjoben.com to see how you can access this lesson and hundreds more. We'll see you there.